So first impressions of the McLaren 12C Spider. You get quite a lot of room in this car, even though the cockpit is quite small. Cockpit, I should really say monocoque, because it's one shell of carbon fibre, which is something that McLaren really specialised to make this car as rigid as possible. Inside there's a lot of Alcantara, carbon and stitching, and a little bit of the leather as well. The interior of the McLaren is very, very well designed. I absolutely love every single little bit of detail. We've got the centre console here and even a portrait sat-nav. And behind we've got a bit of weight saving and a couple of cup holders. I'm not sure who's going to be wanting a coffee in a McLaren like this. Maybe it's to keep you awake. You get a lot of great views inside the McLaren as well. One of my favourites is the wing mirror. You get to see the wheel arches out the back, which look fantastic. Almost makes me think that I'm in a McLaren P1. The best bit about the interior is just the reminder that this car has gull-wing doors. So let's open up the car just so you can have a... Pretty cool, ultimate supercar. Let's take this car on the road and see how it drives.
Named after a Hoover.
Or a maths equation.
Or a maths equation, one of the two. But then again, that fits in perfectly with the style around which this car is built, the whole point of it in the first place.
I'm interested to find out how good this car is, based on all the other cars that we've tested.
The great thing about the McLaren is that it is, well, it is the complete package. I've said that to a lot of people since since I first drove the car. Yes, it's definitely come on a long way since the first and early development vehicles. It really has. But in regards to a complete package, to a driver's car, to the driving position, to the weight, the steering, and the brakes, and the acceleration, the powertrain, everything is pretty much bang on. We talk about the numbers with this. It trumps the Ferrari power, 626 horsepower with the new engine package, whereas on the Ferrari is still at 570. This weighs pretty much around the same.
So it's creating its own league.
Exactly. So this is kind of twin turbo. So a little bit. And then the air brake comes up, and I can't see anything behind me. Look, it just pops up. But it's very, very fast. I mean, it's almost like ludicrously quick for a car of this, that's in this kind of category. We touched upon it with the Ferrari, the fact that, these days in the real world, the cars that are essentially mid-range for these supercar manufacturers are just, light years quicker in the real world than the real top kind of hypercars of the past, really. Yeah. I mean, this, built by the same company that built the McLaren F1, potentially the most iconic supercar of all time. Yet, around a circuit, this is probably quicker. In fact, it's almost certainly quicker.
Just shows how far
fast technology has come on and what's accessible these days. Everything is where you want it. It's very driver focused. There's no buttons on the steering wheel. Look, in the Italia, you've got everything on the steering wheel. Which is a bit ridiculous. Many people don't like that, having your indicators and your lights and your suspension settings and everything all over the place, because you have to get used to it. Some people don't. They don't know that very quickly. Whereas in this, all you've got is your paddles. There's nothing. It's uncluttered. It's very easy to just jump into this car and go. Yeah, exactly, and drive, very quickly, pretty much straight away. Get into a drift, a nice big open drift, and then if it thinks you're going to run out of talent, then it helps you out. And that's what Ferrari are developing. They're developing systems that are so complicated, yet what they focus around is fun and entertainment. Whereas in the McLaren, to turn all the traction control systems off to be completely on your own and see what it can really do, there's a procedure that takes like 10 seconds to do. That's secret. There's not a button that just says off. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't.
There's only one man in the automotive world that likes procedures, and that's James May.
Very much so. Yes.
So this car is the James May, and the Speciale is the Jeremy Clarkson.
That's a good comparison. But in this colour, okay, we're driving through the town centre now, and there's going to be people looking at the car. The first time that I drove this car, I pulled up at a petrol station, went in to pay, and when the time I came out, I couldn't get to the car because there were so many people around it. It is a special thing to see on the road. And because it's a McLaren, as well. It's just very unique. I think that it's a unique thing. It's great to be able to tell people that I drive a McLaren, you know. I think that's really cool.
I didn't even hear whatever you were saying. I was just focusing on everyone that was looking at the car. You wanted us to hang back and boot it. I do get what you mean though, that this car is so perfect that you don't feel that something's gonna go wrong, or
I know.
So let's get an acceleration. This car through the gears gives me a headache. It's so annoying.
Because it's that quick.
It's that, yeah. The acceleration, I just feel like I have to close my eyes because it hurts my head.
Essentially, it's not dissimilar to the GTR, just without the four-wheel drive safety net. It's been set up very specifically, and it's set up to do. It's set up for lap times. It's set up to go around the circuit with minimal movement, to go around and do things very properly. It's not meant to be a hooligan. It's not meant to kind of do the fun thing. You know, if anybody remembers that, you know, as fans of the McLaren, and obviously when, you know, with the rivalry with the 458, when the McLaren first came out, and it obviously wasn't, you know, particularly fair on McLaren because it was, you know, essentially a development car.
But still got a headache.
It's still got a headache.
Yeah.
When it first came out, Fifth Gear did a test with the McLaren and the 458 at the Top Gear test track, and Jason Placeholder and Tiffany Dow drove the cars, and they essentially, you know, they weren't impressed with the McLaren because what they were doing was testing it in such a way against the Ferrari that, you know, that balanced out the fun and the performance factor, and they couldn't get into a position where they actually liked what they were doing with the McLaren. It never felt like it was happy being a hooligan or being thrown around or just doing something it shouldn't, you know, that it shouldn't be doing.
You can hear a lot more of the engine whizzing around. It doesn't sound like it's actually coming from the exhaust.
No, it's there is quite a bit of mechanical sound in this car.
Just like the GTR, where you can hear everything. You can hear everything move. I think I'm going to get thrown about in this corner now. It is so fast. I think comparing the McLaren to the GTR is a good comparison.
It is a good comparison.
But it's also a hell of a compliment to the GTR, which is you could probably buy 4 or 5 GTRs for the same price as this.
You could.
But it's just designed and built for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to go fast and give you a headache.
Give you a headache.
It definitely has a different sound.
The McLaren has a very unique sound.
It's got a very unique sound. It's a very unique car.
It's very space age.
We've been out now for 20 minutes in the McLaren, and I have to say, it's an experience. It's a good experience for a supercar fan, and I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to be shouting at me saying the McLaren's the best car in the world. And maybe it is
These
at what it's
cars,
doing.
They always split opinion, and you know, to have rivalry in this game is very healthy.
Yeah.
And to have different types of offerings is very healthy. There is no the Ferrari's the best, no the McLaren's the best. No, the Ferrari's the best at being a lunatic, and the McLaren's the best at being
Sensible.
sensible.
A
Exactly.
sensible supercar.
Exactly. But to be fair, you know, it's a bit of a balance in this car anyway. Look, it's
Exactly.
ridiculous. It's a ludicrous colour.
Yeah. Bright yellow. But how can you have a sensible car? We're sitting on the road. It does 0 to 60 in...
Probably 3 seconds.
3
then,
seconds.
Under 3 seconds. You know,
That isn't sensible. That's not sensible.
It's mad.
So it's a strange balance.
This car does not to 100 miles an hour in about 6 and a bit seconds. You know,
Okay, it's definitely not
it's
sensible.
not as no. I mean,
But compared to the Ferrari, it is.
yes, it is. It's a weird concoction. But if we're going to wrap up, then I think the best way to wrap up with McLaren is to recognise that it's created an area in the market for itself, a little bit like the GTR. Okay, and that's why when it comes to the group tests and all the magazines do, then the McLaren and the GTR, those cars, they're always part of it because everybody just recognises that they're going to be good and that they're going to be up there and they're 5-star cars and that's it. But what they try to do is to find the happy medium, so when they finish the end of the test they come to it and they say, yeah, but I would take the GT3 home or I would take the Ferrari home because it's just got that little bit more fun.
Yeah.
And that's why. But they're not saying that the McLaren and the GTR, or in this case, you know, the MP4 isn't a good car, it's the perfect car. It doesn't do anything valuable.
I'd compare it to a maths equation. Maths gives me a headache. This also gives me a headache.
I can't believe it gives you a headache. You can't finish it off with saying that it gives you a headache.
McLaren 12C Spider gives me a headache, but we've
done.
But we've done.
But we're done.